Welcome to the Lifestyle Builders Podcast, Show 33. In our last episode, we talked with lifestyle builder Kristen Brandt about business pivots, new offers, and more. Today, we're chatting about working on your business instead of in it. Welcome to the Lifestyle Builders Podcast, where we bring you real-life strategies on starting and growing a business and finding financial freedom without sacrificing the life you have with your loved ones. We are your hosts, Tom and Ariana Sylvester, and we are married, we're parents, and we're serial entrepreneurs. This podcast is for those who want more out of life. We'll show you how to take the vision you have and create the business that will help you achieve it. Join us as we share practical steps, real-life stories, and help you become a lifestyle builder. Welcome back to the show, everyone. We've got a good topic today. I'm excited about it. But first, I want to ask a question, and obviously I'm going to ask it to Tom, and then I'll answer it myself, but I'd love to know our listeners' answers as well. So if you are listening, make sure to come and answer on the show notes page in the comments, and let us know the answer to this question. What did you want to be when you grew up?
A hacker.
Why am I not surprised by that answer at all?
Well, so let me give the backstory.
I hope you can give a backstory.
Yeah, so when I was in 8th grade, I actually got mono, and it basically kept me out of school for most of the year. And around the same time, we actually got our first computer.
Didn't you get like misdiagnosed and because it was outside of the window or something?
Well, I went too early, and they didn't catch it as mono, so basically they didn't know what was wrong with me. And I would like go to school a couple days, and then I'd be like homesick, and I mean I basically missed like most of the year. But around the same time, we actually got our first computer. And then, so I am now starting to feel old because what I'm about to say makes me feel really old. And so we had dial-up internet at the time where you had to like plug the phone line in, and then it was like, all of that.
The cool stuff.
But so anyways, because I was home all day and I was like sick and didn't have energy, I started using the computer a lot. And one of like, we've talked about this before. I like hated school and like traditional learning, but what got me fascinated about the computer was that it only reacted to what I did, and it was like solving problems. And so we had AOL, and I got into basically like teaching myself how to program. And I'm sounding very old and very nerdy now, but
AOL.
But the cool thing around that was it was like there's a problem or there's a challenge, and how can I like figure out how to solve this? I actually wrote my senior thesis on hacking, and the way that I viewed it was I viewed it not so much from the negative perspective, but how to improve things by finding like
shortcuts and things.
All of that. So then what that eventually led me to is my undergrad in college was software development, basically learning how to program. But if you look at the progression, everything I do now is about productivity and how do we find shortcuts and hacks to make things easier and better. But it all came...
Setting up processes.
Yeah, setting up processes. But it all came from really starting with the computer and, wanting to be a hacker.
I don't think anyone's going to be surprised when I say what I wanted to be.
Not at all.
When I grew up. Because when I was younger, my goal was to become a marine biologist. And I actually went through a huge stage in my life where I was obsessed with whales. I had like a whale mobile in my room. I had the like
Was that next to your Elvis shrine?
Very funny. I had like whale figurines that I used to play with and everything. I was obsessed. And then all of a sudden at one point I figured out how vastly large the ocean is and lots of scary creatures that lived alongside the whales.
So whales didn't seem scary even though they're like giant?
No, because whales there's only a couple types of whales that'll actually go after humans, and most of the time they don't. It's only in extreme cases. Other things do, and you're in a small boat trying to go. And I changed my mind, got rid of the marine biologist part, and that's when I switched over to the zoology. Went for regular old animals on land.
Mm-hmm. And now you're an entrepreneur.
And I didn't use that degree at all. And now I'm an entrepreneur. I guess a short stint at the animal shelter kind of counts, but...
All right. Sweet. Well, I'm excited to get into this topic today because it's something that I talk about all the time. I think we now are talking about more often, and it's something that will really help a lot of entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's very... it mirrors to me what we all kind of think when we want to grow up, what do we want to be? Most of us don't actually end up being what we thought we would. And I think it is sort of the same thing when we all want to be entrepreneurs or we want to start a business. What we have a vision of that being actually turns out to be quite a bit different in a lot of ways, because working on your business requires a lot of different skill sets and it requires a lot of growth, as opposed to working in your business and doing those things that you may have fell in love with and the reason you started it.
Yeah, well, what's funny is I think a lot of times when the people ask us that question when we're younger, we immediately jump to the job we want to have. And it reminds me, we were watching The Prophet the other night, and they had this 13-year-old kid. And I mean, this kid like had suits on, like respect. But he had suits on. He had started a cookie business. And he had like a vision board or a bucket list. And one of them was to meet the CEO of JP Morgan Chase, like one of the biggest banks in the world. So this is a 13-year-old. So I think it's very rare. Like most of us don't say, oh, I want to be an entrepreneur when I grow up, or I want to be a business owner. This kid was one of the rarities that I think had that clarity from the beginning. But most of us, I think, grow up wanting to have a job. We want to be a firefighter. We want to be...
Well, or people tell you you should follow your passion. So like what's something that you want to do for the rest of your life? Even if it's not necessarily a job per se, but like when I wanted to be a marine biologist, the reason I wanted that is because I wanted to go hang out with whales all the time.
But what I'm saying though is that's a job. We all immediately define a job, which means we're going to be doing the thing we like.
Yes.
Right? Very few of us are like, I want to run a business. I want to run a marine biologist business, right? Like very few of us say that or think that way. We're all thinking about the actual task that we want to do. And then I think that ties into why a lot of us get stuck as entrepreneurs, because we're thinking about the thing to do in that context, not so much running the business and having other people to do those things.
Well, you talk about an episode of The Prophet, and this I remember the one with the woman who made pies. She was really good at making pies. She loved making pies. People loved eating her pies. But when it came to running the business, she didn't want to have to do that part. And when Marcus Lemonis came in, he's like, listen, you're going to go out of business and not be able to make pies for people anymore. Or you can step up and start to do this stuff, even though it's not as fun for you, and be able to run a business that makes pies. So, he had to kind of set that separately and say, you started this on your own. You loved doing what you were doing, but at some point in your business, it is most likely going to come a time when you have to let go of some of the things that you enjoy doing in order to become the business owner and to run it as such. All
right. So with this, I want to talk about, why is this even a bad thing, or when does this become a problem in your business?
Yeah.
And one of the first things is when you end up trading one job for another job.
Yes.
A lot of times we talk to people that, they don't want to have a boss, and that's a big part of why they want to
have the freedom to be able to do whatever they want, so that entrepreneurship looks amazing because it does give you more freedom.
Yep. The challenge is when most people leave being an employee and becoming an entrepreneur, oftentimes what they fall into is that they're actually doing the work, just like you said with the pies.
And they're doing more work than they would if they were at a traditional job.
Like I remember my mom at one point was like, she comes over weekly, and she came over and we were doing work like at night, and she's like, oh, you guys work at night? And it's like, yeah, that employee mentality of like, I clock in at 8 and I leave at 5. As an entrepreneur, especially when you're in the business building mode, you're going to be working a lot more. But what a lot of people don't realize is that if you just take the employee mindset and then you go and start a business with the skills you have, and you you're neglecting all the other pieces, you're basically saying, okay, well, instead of only working 40 or 50 hours and getting paid consistently every week, now I've left that.
Now I'm going to work working 80 hours.
Work 80 hours a week.
You may not be getting paid
or as much. And most people don't see that, that's a problem or pain point as you make that transition.
Mm-hmm. Well, and we talked to a lot of people that had that happen. They were building the business they dreamed of, and they were working in the business. They loved working, but at some point, those 80-hour weeks bring you to burnout.
Yeah.
And so many people get burned out trying to build their business with kind of that wrong mindset, that employee mindset of you have to be doing the work and you have to be working all the time. And you get into that like hamster wheel of working means I'm busy, being busy means I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, instead of looking at how you should be running your business and what work you should be doing to do that.
Yeah, well, and we've had a couple episodes around mindset. One being that mindset of the entrepreneur. And that's a big part of it is, when you're working for somebody else, especially if the leaders aren't that great, what they reward you on is actually counterintuitive, right? They reward you for working longer. They reward you for like looking like you're busy. Whereas what you really want to reward is results. And as an entrepreneur, you want to obviously work less. You want to do things smarter. So it takes a shift, I think, for a lot of us to move that way. And what I think that also leads into is when you just trade one job for another job, what that ends up causing is that you end up becoming the center of everything in your business.
Yes.
And that's good at the beginning, but it's going to wear out quickly because now you can't take advantage of all the opportunities out there because everything relies on you. And this is one of the first sticking points people get to as they start seeing success in their business. Great, now I got a whole bunch of sales coming in, but how do I manage it all? And suddenly I'm working 80, 100, however many hours a week, and I can't grow the business anymore because it's all reliant on me.
Yeah, and I've talked to a lot of people where they get to a plateau and they cannot build their business any higher than that because every single process, every single part of the business in some way relies on them. So things cannot run without their say, or if something happens to them in their personal life and they have to take some time away, the business literally just stops running while they're gone. And that's not how you get freedom. If something is always reliant on you, you're never truly free to be able to do whatever you want because you're always going to be thinking in the back of your head, well, I can't really take off and go on a vacation for a month because if I leave, my business stops making money. Or what happens when life happens and you don't have control? You have to take time away and your business falters because you're not there.
Yeah, well, you mentioned, hitting a plateau. And that's one of the things I don't think a lot of newer entrepreneurs realize is that there's different levels to growing your business. Yeah. And you're often going to hit a plateau. And I mean, one of my favorite sayings is what got you here won't get you there. And what ends up happening is they hit that plateau and they don't understand why. Usually the first thing I do with these entrepreneurs is we do that time audit, see where their time is being spent, and then see where the bottleneck is in their business. And usually if you're finding the bottleneck, it's going to be that entrepreneur's in the middle of it and they're just not putting attention or don't have time for it.
Yeah. Well, and I know another issue that often comes up is when people start a business, everyone says, well, find a skill that you're good at and go and find people that need your skill and they'll pay you and you do that. This thing of like freelancing versus being a solopreneur versus becoming a business owner. And those are all very different roles when you look at them.
Yeah, and it's funny when we talk about this, sometimes people get like very offended or like they're like, that's nitpicky, it doesn't matter what I'm called. But one of the things I always reference is Robert Kiyosaki has this, what he calls the cash flow quadrant. And basically, or actually not the cash flow quadrant, I forget what he calls it. We'll put a link in the show notes at tomandariana.com/33. Thank you. But basically what it is he says, where do you fall on this quadrant? And he has an E for employee, which is basically where you're trading time for money. And then he has an S for, solopreneur, freelancer, sometimes Superman, because you're trying to do everything. And the thing with those two is that everything relies on you, and you're still trading time for money because it relies on you. And that's part of what we talked about earlier is that there's only so much you can do if you're doing everything.
Yeah, there's only so many hours in a day. You can only do so much freelancing work in a day.
Yep. But then he talks about the right side of this, which is B, which is basically business owner. And at that point, everything's not relying on you, but what you're doing is you're stepping up kind of above everything. Yeah. And you're orchestrating or running the system, and you have other people or you have processes and automation to be able to do things so you can start stepping away. And then ultimately he goes into investor, where you're not spending any time at all. You're just putting your money to work, and then your money's making you money. Yeah. So a lot of times when people get offended, I say, well, it's not about necessarily placing that label, but is your goal to be a freelancer? Because if that's the case and you're a freelancer, then good.
Bravo, yeah.
But if your whole goal was to leave a job to be able to set things up so that you've got more freedom, you've got to realize that you can't be a freelancer, and you need to shift and work on your business more and build the systems so that it can run without you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know a lot of people are nitpicky about the terms that people use, and like, oh, well, this person's not a true entrepreneur and this person over here is a true entrepreneur. I think if you see yourself as an entrepreneur, then that label applies to you. But there are different types of entrepreneurs, and there are different types of levels that you're going to go through as you grow and change.
Yeah. And I mean, my big thing with labels, I could honestly care less what people call themselves. What I look at is what you're doing now getting you to where you want to be? That's a big reason, like we had the episode on coaching, that I made the distinction between like a coach and a mentor and a consultant, because if we're not clear on where we want to go and what we need, then we may get stuck doing the same things, and instead of changing to the things that are going to get us there. Mm-hmm. So like I said, if you want to be a freelancer and you want to do the technical skill and you have no interest in growing a business and being a business owner, that's fine.
Yep.
But if you have left a job and you want to grow a business that can run at least partially without you, yet you're playing and doing the things that a freelancer is, we've got to either change your goal or objective, or we've got to change the actions and what role you're playing in the business to get you to that goal.
Yep.
So while we're talking about this, let's talk about some of the benefits of this, because we've experienced a lot of this because, people probably aren't going to be surprised, but every time we set up a business, I know from the beginning that I don't want to be the one doing all the work. And so...
Well, that's how we set our first... Like, everyone is amazed that we're, 33... We're going to be 34 this year, and we have 3 businesses, which we started 10 years ago, almost 10 years ago. And they're just amazed, like, oh my God, you have 3 businesses. How did you do that? I'm like, well, first of all, we started one at a time. Yep. We did not start all 3 of them at the same time, because that would have been nuts. And honestly, each business went through its own iteration of this.
Absolutely.
Of going from being the person working in the business. Like Tom, when we first started the real estate business, Tom used to actually renovate houses.
Yeah, we would do everything.
Every weekend, he would be down there on whatever house they had just purchased. Him and his dad would be tearing down drywall, putting up new drywall, fixing plumbing, electric, like the whole 9 yards. That was working in the business. Yep. Now, when the business buys a new property, he does not have anything to do with any of the renovations other than the planning of such and looking at the budget. He's working on the business.
Yep.
So we've transitioned over the years to saying, okay, well, this is crap. Like, we didn't start this business so that you would have an extra job on the weekends, having to go down and do all this hard physical labor and worry about all of these details. We started this business so that it could basically run on its own throughout the year, with us just kind of having a high level overview of, let's make sure everything's running correctly. Let's hire the right people in and make sure our processes are all set so that this business can kind of run without us. And that was the goal. So that's kind of what we took the business through.
Yeah, I mean...
Same thing happened when we started the wine and liquor store. We didn't actually work there past like the first month. I worked there the first week we opened because our full-time employee didn't start. She couldn't start till the week after. And then Tom worked with like weekends and weeknights until we got all the rest of our part-time employees in. And once we had an entire team, we didn't actually work at the wine and liquor store. We went down for planning sessions. We went down until I delegated and outsourced the purchasing to one of our employees. I used to go down weekly, make sure that all the orders came in, do the ordering. But yeah, as we started that business, the whole goal was to become business owners of it, not to be working at the store and trading our time for the money.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a progression, like you said. So the first house we bought, like we did everything. And then the next house, I said, okay, well, what can we start outsourcing? Like, what's my least favorite thing to do?
Didn't you outsource drywall first?
Oh, yeah, like finishing drywall.
The bane of Tom's existence is anything to do with drywall.
Yeah, if you guys have never done this, I mean, like, you put the drywall up and then you have to close all the seams with mud. And if you put it on too thick, then you got a ton of sanding. And I'm terrible at this. So the first thing we did was said, okay, what don't I like to do? I don't like drywall, so we hired somebody in to do that.
An example of this is shown in our movie theater in our basement, where Tom was responsible for mudding all of the walls. And you can totally see the seams terrible. Because he just was like, I just want to get this done. I'm so tired of mudding and drywalling.
Yeah, it's a good thing our theater was black, so you can't see most of it.
Yeah, it's painted black and dark gray, so you can't really tell. Although when we go to sell it.
Yeah, but I mean, that's the whole thing around this is like one of the first things that you should be doing when you're looking to delegate is what don't you like to do, and then have somebody else do that. With our wine and liquor store. And this is the cool thing too. So if you guys have a job when you start your business, one of the coolest things you can do is you can say, okay, well, my time is limited. So from the beginning, how do I set this business up so it can run even though I still have a job? Like, people are like, well, how did you open a store when you have a job? Or people were like, hey, Tom, I'm going to stop by the store on Wednesday. I'll see you there.
Are you going to be there?
I'm like, no. We set the store up to say, how do we set this up so that it can run without us? Because you didn't want to be driving an hour to the store every day.
Yep.
And I was literally at another job.
Well, and I mean, obviously this is a little bit different because it is a brick and mortar business, but that was part of what you built into the budget, and the original business plan was looking at what are the startup costs going to be and how much is it going to take to run this business if we hire a full team of people.
Well, and that's the whole thing though. So it shouldn't be different from a thought process. Like, a lot of people are like, oh, well, of course you could do that because of X, Y, and Z. Like, I don't care what kind of business you want to start. If you think this way from the beginning and you build those costs in, you're going to make sure, for example, that you have enough profit to be able to do that.
Yep.
What a lot of people do, like going back to real estate,
selling products that are going to allow you to.
Exactly. Like going back to real estate, one of the things that people don't like about like having rental properties is they're like, well, I got to fix the toilet at 2 a.m.
No, you don't.
Yeah, what you want to do is you want to build into your cost paying somebody for that. Now, at first, you might literally pay yourself for doing that work, but like a property manager is usually 10% of your rent. So when you're analyzing a property, you want to add in 10% to pay whoever the property manager is. It might be you at the beginning, but that way you make sure that you've built into your budget so that when you outsource, you're at a good spot.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and one of the biggest benefits of transitioning to working on the business is getting your time back.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, no one wants to be changing toilets at 2 a.m. and fixing their tenants' toilets. So having the beauty of being able to outsource that means that you get that time back. You're not constantly on call for things in your business. You've got stuff in place for that. You've got people or processes that are kind of taking care of those. So being able to step away without things falling apart is a huge benefit of the transition from working in to on.
Yeah, well, I remember, I think this was the first time that it really sunk in was a couple of years ago. We went on like a 2-week family vacation to Georgia and Florida.
Of one of our houses flooded.
Yeah, but that was the only thing that happened the entire week. So we were gone for 2 weeks, and guess what? Our wine and liquor store ran without us, continued making money.
Yep.
Our real estate investments ran without us, continued making money. And the only thing we were called for was one of the basements flooded. But the only thing we did was that we took the call and then we redirected for somebody to go take care of the problem.
Yep.
So, I mean, one of the questions that's often asked, which is a great question, was if you left your business for a week, 2 weeks, whatever, what would happen? And that was, I think, one of the first times where we literally did that. And we're like, sweet, we've got everything set up so that we could just take a 2-week family vacation and not worry about it. And that's an awesome point to get to.
It is. It is an awesome point. Not really the best call you want to get while you're on vacation, but it only stressed us out for about an hour.
Well, and
that was it.
Well, and here's the thing, to be honest, there's always going to be issues in business. So anybody that tells you that a business is easy or you get to a point where you don't have to do anything, like they're lying to you. They're probably trying to sell you something. Businesses can get easier, But part of being the owner of the business and working on the business is you're responsible for all those problems. And guess what? When a problem comes up, one of the important things that you should be doing is reflecting on that and saying, okay, why did this happen? And then what can we do so that this doesn't happen in the future, or so that it runs better if it does happen again?
Well, and I think one of the things that people don't see, because you don't really see the back end of other people's businesses. Often you see that person or the front faces of the company. But when you start to work on your business, and you do that by either putting the processes and systems out or hiring and delegating team members to help you, it actually helps you grow your business faster, which means you can probably increase your revenue faster as well. That's really tough to do if you're a one-man show and everything is revolving around you doing more work or having more time, which we all know you can't get more time. So in order to be able to grow and to kind of spread it out across the business, that's amazing to be able to grow and scale your business so that you can kind of you're still out there, you're still involved, you're still watching everything happening, but you've kind of like given I don't know, what's a good analogy? Like you've opened up the floodgates for your business.
Yeah, well, so you mentioned like the back end of businesses, and I'll tell you, one of the cool things about the roles we get to play is that we get to see a lot of different businesses. And the vast majority of businesses, their back end and all their systems and everything else are terrible. They're a mess. And this goes from a single person startup to a small team with 10 people, even to like Fortune 500 companies. I spent years working with all different types of companies, and their back ends are always a mess. But from the front, you wouldn't notice that or see it. Yeah. But usually they end up spending a lot more in expenses, or a lot of mistakes happen and everything else. So to your point, by really stepping in and being the owner of your business and looking at all those things, and then setting up the right systems and people in place, you can scale your revenue a lot, and then also be able to scale your profit, which is what we're all looking for.
Yeah, and I think it's just, not that this is something that all of us are striving for, but stepping back and allowing this type of stuff to happen helps you grow as an entrepreneur. A lot of us started as the one-person show and doing everything. As you transition, as you grow, and if you're doing it this way and you're kind of like, okay, I need to step into some of these other roles and I need to be more, I need to become more, it's going to help you grow so much as an entrepreneur, as a person, like just all of the things that you go through and the way that you evolve. Yeah,
well, that was the thing I was going to say. So I think it actually helps you grow way more than just as an entrepreneur. It helps you grow as a person. It helps you grow as a leader. And then, the big thing I found is that when before we were parents and then after we were parents, things were different. But the more that you're doing this type of stuff, the more that you're actually learning new skills, becoming a better person, it changes your perspective a lot of times. And, the cool thing, like we've talked before about the benefits of being an athlete or being part of a team when you're younger, and how that transitions into your life, how you interact with people, how you work together on a business. I think it's the same thing here. When you're actually forced to be the leader of the business, you're going to be facing different challenges, and you're going to be put in uncomfortable situations. And this is going to continuously happen as you grow your business. But every time you face one of those bumps or one of those hurdles and you get over it, like you become stronger, you become smarter, you know how to deal with those things, and all of those carry back over to your life and the different roles you play as well.
I was going to say that also helps you. In our case, I know being an entrepreneur helps me grow on a personal level, but then that also helps me become a better parent. Well, so everything is very mutually beneficial when it comes to that growth. Like it's gonna come across all the levels of your life.
Yeah, well, so as we say that, I think an important thing to realize is that it's going to be a challenge.
Yeah, none of the things that we just mentioned, all these benefits that we just mentioned, none of them are easy. There is no easy button. It's all gonna take work.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good point. Let's talk about some of the struggles that people are going to go through as they transition.
Yeah, well, I think the first one is just stepping into that leadership role and becoming a leader.
Yeah.
It was funny, when I started doing corporate consulting, I was actually primarily pulled in to help companies get their products out faster and then help their teams become more productive. So that was what I initially set out to do. But what I found time and time again was that the leaders, the people that hired me, were actually the first set of people I had to work with, because to do things differently and to become more productive, you actually have to look at your leadership style, your leadership skills, how you work with your team. And I often had to really do the leadership coaching and help them develop as leaders so that they could get the benefits from their teams becoming more productive. And that is a challenging thing, whether you're going from being the only person in your business to hiring your first employee, or whether you've got a huge team and now maybe you're hiring the first level of leadership under you. Everyone, like, as you continue growing, leadership is always a challenge and always something that we should be working on.
It's interesting because I just randomly started thinking about going back to the athletic stuff. I was always more of a leader on the field or on the court as an athlete. But when it came to jobs or kind of that space, like the working arena, I actually wasn't. I swapped roles, which I think is probably why I had such a tough time kind of stepping into the role of an entrepreneur for all those years, because it didn't come naturally to me, which is very odd.
Yeah, I think the other thing too is same thing for me. Like, I was always like the captain, or whether or not I had the title of captain, I always acted as a leader on our teams. But I was always, I think, intimidated when I got into business, like when I got into corporate companies.
Yeah, it is very
I always
intimidating.
thought, it was funny, I always thought that the managers or the leaders that I worked with, I always thought, like, these guys are so much smarter than me and whatever else. And time and time again, I was actually disappointed when I would see somebody at a certain level and I really looked up. I'm like, man, I can't wait to see what I can learn from these people. And oftentimes what happens is that, people get into a position that they're probably not qualified for, especially in corporate. And, they actually aren't great leaders. And, I won't really divert us too much, but there's a big difference between being a manager and being a leader. And, oftentimes
We'll
as
do
an
episode on
entrepreneur,
it for you.
Absolutely. But as an entrepreneur, oftentimes you have to be both, especially as you start building a team. And then really depending on what role you're going to play in the business, you might really focus more on the leadership stuff. Or you might actually hire a leader in and you might focus more on like the managerial stuff.
Yeah.
So depending on where your strengths are, but growing as a leader is probably a lot of people come to me for help with business. As we help with the business, a big thing that I got to help them with is understanding what their role means and how to go from the founder of the company to really the CEO and the leader of that company.
Yeah, and I mean, we just did an episode on this last month with Heather Gray. Our money mindset episode actually turned into, it kind of morphed more into talking about becoming the boss of your business. So we'll link to that show in the show notes, tomandariana.com/33.
Yeah, and that was a really good episode.
It was a really good episode.
I love the fact that we got into a lot of the boss stuff and being the boss of your business, because a lot of people don't talk about that and they don't realize it, and they might see some initial success with their business, but without stepping into that role and developing those skills, once again they become the middle of their business and the bottleneck.
Yeah. And I know one of the biggest struggles that people have, and this is why they love your brain so much, is when you are trying to become the business owner and stop working so much in the business, one of the things that you have to do is implement systems and processes in your business. And this is, again and again, one of the biggest struggles we see entrepreneurs have with, how do I implement systems and processes? What does that even mean? Like, most people, because they're doing it themselves, and I'm totally guilty of this, you have everything up here in your head. You've never written anything down. You don't do it the same way every time. So that's where, when you hit that plateau, you can't go above that because you can't hire anyone. You don't even know what you do. So how can you explain to someone else what you do? And everything isn't always working efficiently in your business because you don't have a process that you follow every time. So this is an area where people are like, oh my gosh, I know I need to work on it. I don't know where to start and I don't know how to do it. And it's one where you kind of have to, you don't have to be good at it, but you have to acknowledge the fact that you need it. And if you know you're not good at it, you might have to hire someone in to help you, or you might have to go educate yourself on how to do this stuff. Because if you don't, you are not going to be able to start working on your business.
Yeah. And, you know, this is one of the things I think people have a challenge with, and they often push back is, you know, Tom, I'm too busy to put processes in place. And if you're saying that, that's the very reason that you need processes in place to begin with. You know, because here's the thing. And then the other thing is too, well, nobody can do it as good as me. You know, that's another thing.
I always said that.
Yeah. And, you know, or, oh, well,
I'm the only one who knows how to do it.
Yeah. Or there's no way that this can be turned into a process because it's different, or there's not a standard way to do it, or blah, blah, blah. There's a million excuses. But at the end of the day, starting to put processes in place, even if you're just working by yourself, is going to make sure that, as you said, you are consistently doing it the same way, because variation is where issues come up. You know, if I forget to press the record button because I'm not following a standard process and we record a whole podcast episode, well, now that's a mistake and it's costing us time, right? So you want to have everything standardized so you're going through the same things every time. What you can then do from there too is you can delegate that off. You can look for inefficiencies in the process and actually cut the waste out and save time, create more money.
Yep.
So, I mean, there's a plethora of things that come from this. But most people, like you said, don't know where to begin, or don't put a focus on this. And then what they end up doing is they end up spending a lot more time and money, and they end up getting burnt out.
Yeah. And this, I mean, we did a workshop for our current lifestyle builders on this last month, and it is amazing how much they've already seen just from going through that like tiny little workshop to get them started into mapping out their processes. And this is something that obviously is Tom's zone of genius. So we will be diving deeper with an episode specifically about implementing systems and processes. That'll be episode 35, so one away from this. And then we're also going to be doing another workshop with our lifestyle builders because we only touched upon it. Like we didn't want to overwhelm them, so we did like the first step. And now that we've got them thinking about their processes and they're starting to go through on their own, like completely voluntary, mapping out their processes in their businesses because they've seen what it can do for them. Now we're going to go in and teach them how to find those inefficiencies and close some of the gaps. And this is one that has definitely helped me over the years because, you know, I've got Tom there in my ear and we'll walk through a process and he's like, well, okay, well, what comes next? Okay, well, what do you do next? Well, why do you do it that way? Is there a different way we can do that? Is there a way we can do that that takes less time? And it's like just going through that process just opens your eyes to how many things you're probably doing in your business that are taking so much extra time, especially if you're like, oh, well, it only takes me 5 minutes. If it takes you 5 minutes every time you do that process, how many times do you do that process a week? How many times do you do it a month? Those 5 minutes add up to hours of your time.
Yeah, well, and it's funny when you say the 5 minutes, like we've timed people, 5 minutes are always like a half hour.
Yes.
Like it never is 5 minutes. And especially we've talked before about multitasking. Even if it only takes you 5 minutes, if it takes you a couple of minutes to get into doing that and then a couple of minutes to get out of doing that and going back to your last task, that's just causing you inefficiencies right there. But I'm glad you brought up that workshop that we did with lifestyle builders because like we were excited for doing it. And then they just loved it. So I just want to run you guys quick through what we did, and you guys can either do it yourselves or you guys can come join us and we'll help you with this as well.
Well, and you can put a post up on the show notes page too and just give them the example that you're going to talk about right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So basically what we did in the workshop was we gave a quick like 30-minute overview of what processes are, why you want them, and how to start. And then we talked basically about the core processes in your business. So Overall, you've got basically the strategy of how you run your business that's working on it. And then you've got marketing and sales as a bucket. You've got operations as a bucket, and then you've got finance as a bucket. So we kind of gave them the high level, but then what we did was we showed them how to actually document a process. So we gave them a one-page worksheet. And then what's cool about like these co-working sessions was we taught them for 30 minutes, and then we gave them 30 minutes to go and do it.
Yep, we set the timer.
Yep. And everyone was quiet. Everyone was going and building their first process. And then we came back at the end, and they had 30 minutes to then share a process, get feedback, Q&A. And there were people that were like, I've needed to do this for like 2 years, and I never have. Like, it always got pushed to the side. And once they did it, it was huge. Like, I wish we had some of the responses that people said, because they're like, oh my gosh, like I have so much clarity now. Or, oh, now I see why I've always had this problem, because I was missing this thing. Or somebody was like, I had trouble documenting the process, and we kind of walked through it with them, and they had all these variations and all this complexity. And it's like, well, now you start to see that you've made your business too complex, and that's why you're running into all these issues. That's why it takes you time. That's why there's all these mistakes. So then you can start looking at, like you said, how do we simplify this? Because really, you want your business to be as simple as possible, because it's going to save you time, it's going to save your employees time, and it's just going to cut out mistakes and cost and everything else.
I just want everyone that is listening and or watching to the video cast to just think back to how passionate Tom just got for the last couple minutes while he was talking. He absolutely loves talking about systems and processes. So that's why we will be doing a completely separate episode all about that, so that he can really dig in and talk about that stuff. And then so you guys can also hear all the important information about it as well. So as I said, that will be show 35. So you can put that on your calendar and wait for that one to come out. But then you did talk a little bit about, while you were in your zone, delegating and outsourcing. And that is a huge, huge struggle for most people, myself included. I always thought I was the only one who could do things. I thought I did everything the best. I didn't want to give up the control of those tasks, or I thought that I needed to do them because if I didn't, something would go wrong. And obviously, as we built these businesses out, Tom, over the years, has slowly but surely said we need to delegate this stuff out. So one of the examples that I gave earlier was doing the purchasing for a wine and liquor store. I used to do that. I don't actually drink wine or liquor, most of them. I have like 3 favorites. So I didn't know what I was ordering, and I would never have tasted them. I didn't actually work in the store, so I didn't hear what people were saying. I didn't see what was missing off the shelves. We had reports and things, but I was only going off of technology, and that was what the reports from the computer showed me. So I wasn't looking far into the future. I was kind of reactive with the way that I ordered. And I just really, it was a process that I followed and just did it, and it was kind of, that was it. When Tom pulled up the idea of outsourcing it to one of our employees, I had some resistance at first. I was like, well, it's a really complicated process. Are we going to be able to train him on how to do it? Like, how are we going to get him the budget so that we aren't overspending and blah, 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 blah. Every excuse in the book. When we talked to him about it, he was like, oh my God, yeah, I would love to do that, because he actually enjoys it. He actually enjoys drinking all of that alcohol, so he knows what everything should taste like or does taste like. And he actually works at the store. So lo and behold, we did some spreadsheets. We went down and trained him. He took over the ordering. We have not looked back since. It's been like a year and a half, almost 2 years now.
Oh, yeah. He's ordering smarter.
The first year he ordered, he saved us like $2,000.
Yeah, I mean, he's saving money. The store's more profitable. I mean, we just had a huge increase in the
inventory.
Store. Yep. And here's the funny thing. I want you guys, anyone listening or watching, I want you guys to pick up on this. So Ariana was the worst person in the world to be doing our ordering. She listed all the reasons that it was terrible for her to be in that role. And even though she hated it, she fought me tooth and nail to get this delegated off her plate.
I did.
So I just want you guys to know, you might go through some of this as well. And this is for something that she wasn't even that good at and hated doing.
Hey, I wasn't that bad.
So, but I'm saying, is your ideal role to be an inventory manager for a wine and liquor store when you don't like it?
No.
No. So there are probably a million people that are better at that job than you. And guess what? That's a good thing, because as the owner of your business, you don't want to be doing all of these, because guess what? If you wanted to take a week-long vacation and you were doing this job, what would happen?
We
would be on the
get any
beach,
alcohol, or I would be on the beach having to put the order in.
Yeah, so Ariana, we'd be on the beach, we'd be enjoying life, and then she'd be like, oh, let me go leave for an hour or two so I can put this order in so our store can still run. Right? We don't want that.
Yeah.
But just realize that this was something she didn't want to do, and it was hard to outsource. So we'll dive deeper in
Well, and I don't think managing comes naturally either. So, like, that's a tough thing to get into. Like, you are responsible for those people that are in your business. So when you go to delegate or to outsource something, I think there's different types of resistance. There's the resistance of like, no, it has to be me. I'm the one who has to do it. I have to keep control. And then there's the resistance of like, oh crap, I'm responsible for this person. I've got to make sure that I'm managing correctly. I've got to make sure I'm communicating correctly. What happens if they screw up at their job? Then what do I have to do? Then I've got to go through, I might have to fire somebody. Like, all of that stuff can be very awkward to deal with. And if you haven't had a managerial position in a job, when you jump into being an entrepreneur and having to step into the role of business owner, all of a sudden now you have to deal with that. And it's not like you have training on it. It's not like you go and have, a lot of times if you're in a corporate position and you become a manager, they'll send you to a convention or a training on how to manage people. When you're an entrepreneur, you have to take on that role yourself. So you've got to take the initiative to go and learn about how to communicate better with your employees, how to manage a team. So it's just an extra step of stepping into that role. Now there's something else you have to worry about.
Yeah, actually, you bring up a good point there. So, you'll see that companies spend a lot of money to train their people. Mm-hmm. And especially when you're going through these transitions to step into the role of owner of your business, invest in yourself.
Yep.
It can start with books. I mean, there's a lot of really good leadership books out there. But go and find people that will help you with that. Go and attend courses or seminars, because
surround yourself with other business owners that are dealing with the same stuff.
Yep. I mean, I've had companies hire me in for a long time for this stuff, and they pay a decent amount of money. It's an investment for them, but they know the benefit of being able to lead and manage effectively. The ROI on that is huge, because especially if you have a team, the more people you have, the more important this is. Mm-hmm. Because if you're not doing this effectively, not only are you not effective, but now everyone on your team is less effective. And if that leads to people not being happy, if that leads to turnover, that just costs you more money and adds more stress. Mm-hmm. So that's a really good point. Is part of as you're doing this too is, you've got to think differently about your business, where you invest and what those key things are.
All right. So my homework for today is actually going to be an interesting one. I want you to, how people talk about like wearing all the hats? I want you to go through your business and write down all the hats you wear. So whether you're working on it on your own, or maybe you've started a team and you have like an assistant or something, I want you to go and list all of the things in your business that you're responsible for. This could go down to filing in your office if you have paper files, or changing your garbage can liner, all the things that you have to do to keep your business running. Write them down.
Yeah. Well, and, I think we've talked about doing a time audit before, but a time audit's a really good way to do this as well, mm-hmm. because you might forget about all the things you do. But like you said, that was a great example, changing the garbage. Like, there's a million of these things that we do, and we don't realize it until we kind of do one of those time audits.
Yep.
So I think that's a good one. What I'm going to recommend for homework for people is take a listen back to this show, and as you're defining the different hats that you wear, start defining what you like about that hat.
Ooh.
And what you don't like about that hat.
I like it.
Because
building on my homework.
Absolutely. Well, because what you're going to see, Ariana alluded to it a couple times, we've got some upcoming episodes, and by doing this homework, it's actually going to prep you for the homework we'll be giving you guys in those episodes.
We forgot to mention that one of our episodes will be on delegating and outsourcing as well. So show 37, make sure you listen to that one too.
Absolutely. So, but, doing this homework, it's all going to build on top of each other. And the nice thing about this is that it's then going to set you up to be able to say, okay, now how do you create your first process? right? And then once you're ready, how do you then take that process and delegate it out to something else? And I am not figuring out how to use this tablet.
All right, so Tom is trying to find his bookshelf suggestion for today.
So the bookshelf suggestion for today is called The E-Myth Revisited. And we'll see if I can put this up without dropping it. This is a great book. You guys have probably heard about it. If you haven't, one of the books you should definitely pick up, especially if, you know, some of the stuff in the show resonated with you. This book was first written in the 80s by Michael Gerber, and then he put out a newer version called The E-Myth Revisited, I think, in like the 90s. But all of this is still relevant, and basically what he talks about is working in your business, like being the what he calls technician, the person with the skills, versus working on your business where you're the owner and you're setting up systems and processes. And a cool concept that he talked about in here was thinking about your business from the beginning like a franchise.
Yep.
So, you know, think about your business like McDonald's. So what are all the steps and procedures? What does the overall system look like that you could then replicate? Because if you think that way, you're going to think about putting processes in place. You're going to think about what role you play. You're going to think about who you got to hire. So this is a really good book. Like I said, if you haven't read it, this would probably be one of the top books I'd recommend for most entrepreneurs, especially if they're kind of in this place.
And I've seen it recommended time and time again online. Everyone loves this book.
Yep. So that's the book for this week.
All right, you guys, it's been another great episode with Tom and Ariana, your hosts and lifestyle builders.
And as always, it's your life, your business, your way. We'll see you next time.
Bye. Are you frustrated by a lack of momentum in your business? Do you want real-time guidance and support from seasoned entrepreneurs who really care about your results? If you're nodding your head or awkwardly shouting yes in public somewhere, then we invite you to join Lifestyle Builders, a mentorship program designed to meet you where you are and give you strategic and custom guidance so you can build the business you need for the life you crave. You can find out more at joinlifestylebuilders.com.
Your life, your business, your way. Join Family Entrepreneur Life. Join Family Entrepreneur